Aloha once again, friends and family. Let's pick it up in chapter 9, listening to your body. And sorry, we're going to have to listen to some tree cutting. Ian knocked some trees down around here, so people are cleaning it up. Your physical body is your ultimate therapist because it lets you know when you are in balance and when you are not. Your emotional body is a close second in this regard. If you are unsure of your psychological state, then tune into your physical body and find all the places that do not feel light and happy. Congestion, pain, numbness, or discomfort of any kind is an indication that there are unresolved issues. They may be simple and straightforward, such as when you ignore your body's comfort because you are too busy pursuing a mental obsession. You can even be mentally obsessed with truth. If you have been ignoring your body, you just need to become more aware of it and how it interfaces with the rest of you. If there are emotions attached to body pain and discomfort, then these need to be addressed by giving them full attention and then asking for assistance from your God self and others. The psychological healing section below will help you in this regard. Techniques for healing the emotional body. Ask your God self to show you exactly what you need to do to clear your emotional issues. Perhaps a therapy session or support group is called for, or maybe it is something you can resolve on your own through greater love and self-acceptance. Usually, when there are unresolved emotions, it means you are not listening to one or more parts of yourself. You are in denial. You are suppressing and even repressing some of your desires because you have a belief that those desires are wrong or cannot be fulfilled or should not be fulfilled. The psychology of soul growth. This channel has a section in Life on the Cutting Edge that describes the process of personal and spiritual growth. He states there is a 4-phase process in the acquisition of physical and spiritual experience. We have modified the original material slightly as follows. Phase 1, Revelation. The first phase of the growth process involves a period of revelation or transmission of information from higher dimensions that comes into the mind of the seeker, usually in a new and unexpected manner. Traditional psychologists would call this insight. Suddenly you can see new things in a new light. You have an aha experience. You become open to something completely new and unknown to the conditioned mind. This is often a very joyful experience and is called satori in some Eastern philosophies. Phase 2, Disillusionment and Purification. The revelatory period is usually followed by a period of disillusionment and discomfort. The new information will undoubtedly clash with existing belief systems and emotional paradigms. This is where a lot of traditional seekers get stuck. They have become addicted to the normal way of thinking about things, and now suddenly they are being asked to give all that up in favor of something that sounds outlandish and fantastic. Q. You can recall how the establishment of early Europe reacted when they were told the world was not flat, and subsequently how people today act when you tell them it is flat. If the soul who reaches the stage of disillusionment has made an intense commitment to seeking the truth, he or she will usually get through this period of discomfort with relative ease, but nevertheless, it is this phase of the growth process that gives rise to the adage, 2 steps forward and 1 step back. This phase of the growth process involves the need to purify and cleanse the self of all barriers to growth in order to fully integrate the new experiences. It is necessary to examine all that is in the way of being able to open completely to the new energies. For a time, it will seem as though things are getting worse because a lot of stuff will be coming up to be healed. This is one of the reasons things seem to be getting worse on planet Earth. All that is false must be revealed before it can be healed. And so this stage of the growth process is often a movement away from denial and into facing the realities of the shadow self. This means examining all the places that have been hidden in darkness and repressed. It means shining the light of truth into the darkest corners of the psyche. The path of the soul is often depicted as a stairway to heaven. The part of the steps going up represents the revelatory experiences and rapid awakenings, while the flat part of the steps represents the purification and purging of the old self, and also what this channel calls the consolidation phase, which we have combined into phase 2. Consolidation means that the aspects of the self that have rapidly expanded in awareness must wait for the slower aspects of the self to catch up. During the second phase, the temporary enlightenment initially experienced in phase 1 seems to go away, and the old patterns seem to return. This step back could take the form of old thoughts rearing their ugly little heads, just when you thought you had completely cleared them. It could be an old hurt or resentment coming up at the least appropriate and convenient time. It could be something embarrassing that you said in public, or something that brought up an old feeling of shame. You might observe yourself knowing better and yet falling into the same habitual pattern over and over again. Perhaps you have acquired an addictive behavior that you want to clear and know you can clear, yet it seems to take you over just when you thought you were getting free. There is a lot of residue from the old egoic self that still needs to clear for most of you. Remember, after entering into the density of form, it took thousands of years for you to descend further into darkness and ignorance. Lifetime after lifetime, you became more and more enmeshed in the density of the third dimension. So it is unrealistic to expect everything that is holding you back to magically disappear after saying a few affirmations. It is unrealistic to expect to be completely free of negativity after 20 or 30 years of personal growth. And so let the saw sounds in the background be a reminder of how long it took us to get so mind controlled and how deeply mind controlled we became, and that those sounds, are just a reminder that we spent a long time listening to that buzzsaw, and now we want to get clear of it and get free of it and not hear it anymore. And that too is going to take time and work and effort and will. The world you live in is dominated by negativity. Since the recent dispensations began, the number of positively oriented people living on your world has increased from about 20% to about 25%. Although progress has been slow from the point of view of an average human lifetime, it has been phenomenal when you consider that up until now, during the history of Earth, only about 300 souls have physically ascended. The 5% or so of humanity that has moved towards the light since the recent dispensations began represents millions of souls that might still be wandering in darkness otherwise. You have a saying in your world: in order to go where you want to go, you must start where you are. This may seem very basic, but a great many of you have refused to look fully at things as they are. You have an image of how things should be, and when they do not fit your model, you get upset and resort to various psychological manipulations and rationalizations in order to justify your position. The most simple of these is just plain denial. Until you can acknowledge and accept the way things are, including all of your imperfections, you will not have the clarity and energy necessary to make real change. This second phase of purification and disillusionment is often called the dark night of the soul in some philosophies. Phase 3, acceptance. The third phase of the growth process involves self-acceptance. This is where you accept all aspects of your experience as perfect, despite the apparent imperfections. Once you stop fighting with the parts of yourself that seem to be holding you back or moving more slowly, an amazing thing happens. Those parts of you begin to grow and change as well. This means you must totally and completely feel whatever it is you are feeling, without trying to escape or avoid it. We are not suggesting you wallow in it or move into dramatics as a way of getting attention and sympathy. However, you must be willing to be with your feelings. You must be ready to give 100% attention to what you are experiencing. For example, all of you hearing this book are in human bodies, unless a few ETs have managed to obtain copies or tuned in. Your human bodies are most likely manifesting imperfections in some way. Sure, you know about instantaneous healings, so-called miracle healings, and advanced psychic and intuitive powers. You know you are one with God. You know you have a whole universe helping you grow and evolve. Yet hardly a day goes by when you do not fall into one of those human foibles the channel talks about. It could be a sore knee or stiff lower back. It could be a head cold or cough. Perhaps you just feel low energy at various times throughout the day. This channel has a two-step formula for psychological healing. 1. You must fully feel, experience, and accept whatever is taking place within you and in your life. 2. You must be able to detach from your drama and view it from a higher perspective. Once you have become fully present with your experience, then it is time to expand your awareness until you are able to view the drama from outside of the process. This is the detachment spoken of in the second step of healing. Going into meditation and simply watching the drama of your life as it unfolds is the key. As stated in this channel's prior work, if a soul indulges too deeply in the first step and is unable to become detached, he or she is often referred to as a drama king or drama queen. All of you know someone who constantly emotes and displays a great deal of passion and pain, yet never completely resolves the issues at hand. Conversely, those who detach without fully feeling the experience and experiencing what is taking place are the ivory tower intellectuals who spend most of their lives talking and thinking about things and rarely experiencing them. These souls are often called space cadets or airy-fairy dreamers. You cannot overcome and transcend this world by denying it, or pretending you do not feel anything, or by trying to go beyond your humanness. Once you completely accept your humanness and work with it, your spiritual self will give you the tools that are necessary in order to truly transcend the inherent limitations of the 3D world. By acknowledging and accepting all the aspects of yourself, you are in effect bringing those aspects to the table of the God Self where real decisions can be made. Phase 4. Integration. The last phase of the growth process involves the bringing together of all the aspects of self so that they are functioning as one complete whole. When all your aspects are working together, you are invincible and unstoppable. You can move mountains. There are various techniques for achieving soul integration. This channel's conference room technique is one example. It is an exercise whereby the different parts of the self meet across from each other around the conference table, and each aspect gets to express its view of the situation, along with the airing of any fears or doubts that need to be cleared. Once the various aspects are able to reach a consensus on the way to proceed, real progress is made. We will not go into detail on this process, but you can contact the channel if you want more information. The first step to soul integration involves becoming aware of the different parts of the self. This is why we have included a fairly rigorous analysis of the emotional and mental bodies in previous paragraphs. The more clearly you examine the self and its various aspects, the easier it will be to know exactly what each aspect wants. Many times a specific aspect just wants to be loved and accepted, or at the very least, acknowledged and listened to. As you go through the earth changes, it is important to listen carefully to every aspect of your psyche, including your so-called inner child. Actually, you have many inner children. Each has a voice that needs to be heard and accepted, even if you decide not to follow the advice of that voice. There is a lot more we could say about the psychology of the self, but we must move on at this time to another related subject: how to transcend the dark forces. You will note, dear creators, that this book often revisits subjects, but from a slightly different angle each time. This is done so that all facets of your consciousness can eventually grasp the ideas we are presenting. One such subject is that of the so-called dark forces that have been controlling large numbers of people upon your world. This section has been inserted between the psychology and metaphysics viewpoints because it is, in essence, a bridge between the two. The integration of psychology and metaphysics can be demonstrated with virtually any subject or topic relevant to the transformation of consciousness. But in this case, we are focusing on the dark forces because of the pivotal role they are playing on Earth. You have been told correctly by your teachers that in order to free yourselves from the influence of the dark forces, you must clear your consciousness of all limiting beliefs, destructive emotional patterns, and negative imprints in the etheric body. On your world, this has been explained extensively from the viewpoint of both psychology and metaphysics, yet there has been little mention of the energetic patterns of matter and spirit that form the crux of the situation. As you know from your study of the astral and etheric realms, all souls in the universe are connected through a matrix of energy. Within this infinite field of consciousness, souls have free will to travel from aspect to aspect and region to region, depending on the soul's desires. Although consciousness is continuous, extending and expanding forever omnidirectionally, there are some regions of the field of consciousness that are more dense than others. The composite vibrational level of a soul, meaning the average energy of that soul over a given period of time, determines the region of the field in which the soul moves and perceives reality. The elements and intervals of time involved in changing the composite vibration of a soul vary, depending on the phase of soul growth being experienced. Resonant fields. Every thought, feeling, and belief system of individual souls influences the overall field of consciousness. When your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs are similar to the thoughts, feelings, and beliefs of another soul or group of souls, you create what is called a resonant field between such souls. Resonant fields can be set up consciously or unconsciously, depending on the level of awareness of the soul or group of souls. An obvious instance of a conscious resonant field would be in the forming of an extremist terrorist organization where the goals are explicitly stated. For example, a group of souls might decide that they want to eliminate a certain government or political body using violent methods. The group then focuses their energy and intent on the destruction of their self-made adversary, and a field of energy emanates from the group and enters the matrix of consciousness in that region of the infinite field. This hate-filled energy of terrorism then reaches out across the universe, seeking resonance with other similar energy fields, according to the metaphysical principle, like attracts like. This field of hate resonates with other fields of hate, and this particular group then experiences the results of the attractive field. The manifestation of this might take a variety of forms. Perhaps other groups with similar values will join forces with this group, or the members of such a group may attract unsavory entities that feed off the vibrations of fear and hatred within. You, as light workers, may be saying, how is this relevant to our desire to ascend and reconnect with the higher aspects of self? The reason we are bringing this up is because most of you have resonant fields of energy within the self that are unconscious. They could be energetic patterns in the etheric body that were formed many lifetimes ago, and could even go back to original cause, the trauma associated with the belief in separation from source that occurred when souls became identified with the lower density worlds in which they were exploring. On a more mundane level, the daily barrage of negativity propagated by the forces that believe they are in control of Earth mingles and mixes with the energetic field of individual souls and soul groups residing on Earth. The psychology of the law of attraction. Although this book does go into great detail on the relationship between the mind and the body, it is appropriate to introduce this section on metaphysics by reminding you that while the mind ultimately controls the body's state of health and well-being also controls to a large extent what the mind thinks and how it perceives reality. This concept can be applied to the relationship between the so-called light and dark forces. While ultimately the idea of dark forces is an illusion in this world, as long as there are beings that believe in darkness, the darkness will seem to be there. It will influence those who are unaware that they have various aspects of themselves that have not been brought to the light. Another way of saying this is that if there are parts of yourself that you do not love unconditionally, or parts of yourself that you have judged on some level, those parts are not vibrating in the light of God's limitless love and compassion. Therefore, those aspects of self are radiating and emanating into the collective resonant field of vibration of discord and disharmony. This discordant vibration then goes out and attracts a situation of discord that is vibrating in a similar manner, hence the resonance of like attracting like. There are several corollaries to the above statement. For example, if you are experiencing resistance in your life in the form of a perception that dark forces are trying to stop you from achieving your mission, then there is an aspect of your own consciousness that is not integrated. There is something in you that has not been brought to the light. You have unresolved psychological issues in some part of your being that are drawing the attention of dark forces. Take a moment, dear creators, to examine every facet of your earthly lives. If there is discord or disharmony anywhere within the spectrum of your personal, business, or social arenas, then you know that somewhere within your consciousness are unresolved negative thoughts, feelings, and or beliefs that need to be brought to the light. As you purge yourselves of all that is false, all that is not in harmony with your highest and best soul growth, happiness, and well-being, you will find that you no longer react to anything the so-called dark forces are doing or attempting to do on earth or anywhere else. Although you will be aware of what these misguided souls are doing, perhaps in great detail, you will have no emotional reaction to them, and they will have little or no influence over your life. The most popular negative belief system that attracts dark energies is the belief that forces outside of yourself can prevent you from being happy and free. Everywhere you look on earth, you see evidence that this belief is true. You see the downtrodden and impoverished living lives of quiet desperation, struggling to eke out a living in some dilapidated, decaying inner city. You see oppressive governments withholding basic necessities from the people they are supposed to be governing. You see massive amounts of resources going to fund various wars and warring factions. Some countries spend more money on weapons and military regimes in 1 month than it takes to feed their people for a lifetime. In the previous section, we discussed the fact that darkness tends to exist as long as there is denial of its existence. Once it is faced totally and completely, without any fear or judgment, it is dispelled. The existence of the dark forces depends on their being hidden from view. The beings that seem to control this world cannot continue their charades once the people become aware of their presence and how they operate. However, it is not enough to simply be aware of their presence. You must come to understand the psychology of the dark forces, which means knowing why they believe the way they do and how those beliefs came into existence. Exploring original cause and the process of self-evolution and devolution is essential in this regard. When you can approach a so-called Dark Lord and have an instantaneous and complete comprehension of what is going on within the consciousness of that being, you are able to easily free yourself from the grip of the control and domination energies emanating from such a soul or group of souls. When you have cleared your own psychological issues sufficiently that nothing this soul or group of souls does, thinks, or feels has any effect on you mentally or emotionally, then you will find that you are no longer under the influence of this dark soul or group of souls. Perhaps for a short time you might experience some physical constraints. You might decide to continue paying taxes for a while, taxes that fund the terrorism being propagated by the government under which you live. You might continue to lock your doors at night to help prevent negatively oriented people from invading your private space. You might even choose to live in an area that is unlikely to be attacked by a rogue military or terrorist group. Yet within your own consciousness, you will no longer have any emotional reaction to these dark souls. Their activities and state of being will not bother you in the least. You will continue to ascend and create beauty and love in your life despite their rantings and ravings. This is vastly different from going into denial and pretending that everything is love and light. There are a lot of so-called light workers on earth that refuse to acknowledge the presence of the dark ones. They have convinced themselves that they have already transcended the influence of the dark souls and therefore do not need to concern themselves with the presence of the dark forces. This is a serious mistake that needs to be corrected. Denial is a subtle form of fear and a very dangerous stance if you are committed to soul growth. Denial seems to give power to the darkness and make it more real. The denial of the masses, mesmerized by the bright colors of the modern world, is obvious. The denial of the love and light mentality is more difficult to heal because the psychological issues are buried in the subconscious mind in the form of repression. When issues are repressed, the soul is unaware that they even exist. You can see this in your so-called gurus that have convinced themselves that they are beyond certain human frailties until a sex scandal erupts or someone within their following slips poison into their drink or some part of their lives are exposed in an embarrassing way. Returning to our discussion on the resonant field, you must realize, dear creators, that your subconscious mind, astral, etheric, and causal bodies are part of your total resonant field of consciousness. Your composite field is the sum total of the state of vibration of all of your levels and dimensions, at least the ones that have been activated. If 20% of your consciousness is full of love and light, while 80% is comprised of fear and anger lurking within your subconscious, you are going to manifest roughly 20% positivity and 80% negativity in your life. If you are in denial, you might convince yourself that everything in your life is love and light, and then blame all your problems on the Illuminati, who Putin said he would straddle and strangle with his bare hands, by the way, or on others that just don't understand you or that are threatened by your light or some other rationalization. You might then wonder why the things you affirm and pray for or wish and hope for do not always seem to come true in your life. Beloved creators, prayer is always answered. What most souls do not realize, however, is that what comes to you is a result of the composite state of your consciousness, not just the state of your conscious mind. To sum up the section on psychology, you must clear your emotional issues and core negative beliefs before you can hope to truly transcend the darkness that has engulfed Earth for millennia. Although negatively oriented ETs had a great deal to do with the destruction of many of your civilizations of past times, there is a reason those beings were attracted to Earth in the first place. Earth herself is a manifestation of the composite consciousness of the multi-dimensional field surrounding and penetrating her. She is a living being with a consciousness of her own, but that consciousness is heavily influenced by the overall energy matrix on and above her surface and below. Up until now, she has agreed to accommodate a large number of negatively polarized souls. She will continue to harbor the laggard souls until the precessional alignment and galactic shift reach a certain critical juncture. Your primary task as light workers at this time on Earth is to clear all of your personal psychological issues, negative emotions, core negative beliefs, programming and conditioning from past lifetimes and early childhood, etc., until your entire field of consciousness, energy matrix, is clean and clear of discord and disharmony. You have the help of vast numbers of souls in the higher realms, some of which will be detailed in Chapter 10. Do not be afraid to look into the deepest and darkest recesses of your own psyche. Your salvation, liberation, and freedom depend on this. Give your complete attention to the state of your own consciousness, for within the depths of your being are the answers to all the other questions you face on a daily basis. The metaphysics of earth changes. Closely related to psychology and metaphysics, or the science of the mind, the most obvious and widespread metaphysical knowledge going around your world is the idea that you create your reality with the quality of your thoughts. While this is true to some extent, a more accurate statement would be that you create your experience of reality based on the quality and content of your consciousness. Reality is far more complex than just your experience of it. Reality consists of several layers, levels, and dimensions of creation, all existing simultaneously. You have your personal reality, which consists of your perceptions, beliefs, programming, conditioning, responses, reactions, and general state of consciousness. And then you have your collective reality. Humanity has a collective reality that is the composite result of the consciousness of individual members of humanity relating with each other. And then you have the sub-collective realities of those with similar belief systems, programming, and conditioning. For example, most of you believe in death and taxes, and so that is a rather large sub-collective reality. Only a few of you believe you can live free of death and taxes, and so that is a rather small sub-collective reality. In the fourth density world of future Earth, the dominant reality will be what this channel calls enlightened, self-sufficient spiritual communities. Those humans who embody love and compassion and who have enough awareness to move beyond third density consciousness will survive the earth changes and create the so-called golden age of peace and prosperity. This will be accomplished largely through the thought processes and beliefs of the surviving humans. We will now say a few more words about the law of attraction, since this seems to be a very popular topic in your world right now. The law of attraction. There are essentially two dynamic patterns happening in regard to the law of attraction. You have the familiar and obvious idea that like attracts like, meaning that you move along your path. As you move along your path, you will tend to attract souls into your life that have a similar state of consciousness to your own. The most simple example is when you befriend someone because you have common interests or want to explore an area of life together in which you have something in common. The members of a sports team are an obvious example of this. In your relationships, you might choose a partner who has the same basic interest as you so that you can enjoy each other's company when indulging in your favorite pleasures. There is another dynamic to the law of attraction. You might attract someone into your life because you have something to learn from that person, or you might attract someone who has something to learn from you. In most cases, there will be a little bit of both. You might have a soul contract or karmic agreement with another soul. You might be the student or the teacher, or both. You might come together in order to work through the karmic lessons, or you might be drawn together in order to co-create something important that needs both of your talents. You might seem to be opposites in every sense, but your soul craves the opposite viewpoint because it wants to learn all it can about everything. Such relationships are often called complementary pairs. Many souls on earth start their relationships by healing past karma and teaching each other what each needs to learn to move forward in the quickest way possible. At some latter point, the partners might move into a more co-creative phase whereby they bring their differences together in a way that complements and assists in their soul's desire to create. The law of attraction works for collective realities as well as personal realities. What you focus on, you become, is true for groups as well as individuals. If you are on a path of ascension, you will attract others that are on the path of ascension, and you will be drawn to groups, organizations, and communities that have ascension as their primary focus. If you have decided that ascension into fifth density is your path during the earth changes, you will do well to associate with others who feel the same way and are working to create a fifth density paradise. Creating your reality. In this channel's counseling and healing work, he gives students a process for creating and manifesting. We will mention this process briefly and add a few modifications here and there as we see fit. The reason we are including this instruction on how to create is because so many of you have been misinformed or given only partial information about the creative process. In your success motivation books, which are numerous, every pundit and preacher on the subject gives his or her magic formula for success. Some of the formulas tend to work better than others, but none of them will get you very far unless you understand how each energy works in your lower worlds. As we stated earlier, it is essential to have all the aspects of yourself lined up and supporting one another in order to manifest your role as a powerful creator. Once you have determined what it is your soul truly desires, and you have the backing of your mental, emotional, and physical selves, as well as astral, etheric, and causal selves behind that soul desire, then the process of creation is relatively straightforward. Manifesting in the lower worlds is accomplished by directing energy in a specific way. The role of the mind is highly overemphasized in most lessons on how to create. The mind's primary role is that of carrying out the task given by the spirit. The mind is like a mechanical device that performs the necessary tasks for manifesting your desires. However, it can get its instruction from spirit or the ego. And when it receives instruction from the ego, the results are usually less than satisfying. So the first step in manifesting what you desire is to get in touch with your own God self, your core essence within. Once you have done that, tune in to the various levels and aspects of the self and make sure they are all on the same page. You can use this channel's conference room technique to assist you in getting all of your parts together. Now you are ready to create. Creation is directed from the center of your being outward. You do not need to visualize things coming to you or even specific things happening in your life, although that can be helpful. It is more important to visualize the creative energy going forth from the center of your being. To create, you must feel in your heart and solar plexus the certain knowledge of what you are creating. You then know and intend to create that which you are feeling within the third and fourth chakras. Wishing and hoping have no place in the creative process. They are devices of the ego and are rarely effective. To create the feeling of success in your heart and solar plexus, there are various techniques, including what this channel calls reverse timeline healing, which means going back in time to a situation where you felt unsuccessful and bringing that feeling forward and overlaying it on your present physical body. This is different than simply remembering a time when you felt successful. Once you feel deeply the reality of success, you then place this feeling into your heart and solar plexus while knowing that this is your reality in the present moment. At that point, you can bring the mind into the equation and begin visualizing the details of what it is you are manifesting. Obviously, if any negative emotions arise, you need to clear them and continue with the process. Knowing how to create will help carry you through the earth changes safely and efficiently. For example, you can create a feeling of safety and then manifest it in the world, even if you are in an area likely to be negatively impacted by earth changes. This channel knows souls that lived in areas ravaged by forest fires. In many cases, the fires burned all around their property without touching theirs. You will eventually be able to walk through a forest fire or flood and be completely unharmed if you hold the feeling of safety strongly enough within your being. Your God presence will enfold and shield you as necessary from any outer conditions. It is also advisable to have a support system in the higher realms, and that brings us to one more topic within this section: clarifying the role of spirit guides and helpers. As you ascend in vibration, you will find yourself clearing all of your deeply held core negative beliefs about reality and the earth changes. The law of attraction will also bring you the ETs and spirit guides that are right for you. You might need to let go of some guides that are no longer serving you before you can let more appropriate ones in. Outgrowing your spirit guides is quite common on Earth. Many well-meaning spirit guides will hang around and continue to attach to your energy because they think you still need their help. In most cases, when you are clear that you no longer need their guidance, you can ask them to leave and they will. If they are stubborn, they might refuse to go, and then you will need to use a stronger technique to get them to leave. This channel and others have various techniques for protecting yourself from overly enthusiastic guides. After all, it is your free will decision whether or not to allow specific energies, entities, or thought forms into your personal space. It is essential that the guidance you receive genuinely helps you prepare for the earth changes. You need to feel nourished and supported by your guides. If your guides are continuously feeding you thoughts of fear, it might be time to change your guidance system. Consult with this channel or an appropriate healer or teacher for help in letting go of guidance that no longer supports you. One final note on this point: if you are constantly relying on your guides to give you information and the information does not seem to be serving you or seems to lead you in the wrong direction, then that might be an indication that you know more about the subject of inquiry than your guides. It is amazing how many souls on earth seem to rely on spirit guides just because they are in spirit and not in embodiment. We are not sure where you got the idea that just because a guide is not human, he or she is more evolved and aware than you are. As an aside, it is interesting to note that this channel, if he were to claim he is only channeling his own higher self, would likely garner far less interest in his work than if he states that he is channeling spirit guides from a lofty dimension. Yet there is no guarantee that the information from the lofty spirit guides is any more valid and accurate than the information from his own higher self. All information, whether from us, his higher self, or anyone else, needs to be tested with discernment and critical thinking. This leads us naturally to the next field of study, one that is sorely lacking discernment in many cases, as you have no doubt noticed: religion. And we will tackle that big subject next time. Until then, love, unity, and light, and we leave you in the love of the infinite Creator.